Hello and welcome to my podcast. My name is Natalie Simpson, and today we're going to be talking about R.E. Jane, a novel written by Patricia Park. R.E. Jane is a modern rendition of the Victorian story Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I think that this format is particularly important. The book is modernized in how it integrates intersectionality to illuminate issues of identity and belonging. In adding components of culture, class, and race, the novel adds depth to the plot of Jane Eyre that allows for deeper consideration of the tensions of Asian Americans and particularly of Asian American women. R.E. Jane, in creating a spin-off of a Victorian novel, a genre that is well studied and very highly esteemed in the Western world, with themes of transnationalism and distinct Asian American struggles, challenges the dominant discourse around literature. Olivia Moy explains in her piece titled Reading in the Aftermath, an Asian American Jane Eyre, her experiencing lecturing about R.E. Jane and another book that was a spin-off of Wuthering Heights. She explains how when she lectured, scholars, quote, felt that my interventions didn't contribute new insights into the Brontes or Victorian life per se. One journal suggested I dropped any Victorianist framing and read the novels expressly in terms of Asian Americanist critique. In responding to reviewers, I found myself apologizing for my choice of text since, regrettably, they were not Victorian enough to justify their inclusion. Additionally, on the very next page 409, Moy describes how Park's adaptations in R.E. Jane present opportunities to conjoin past and present, drawing Bronte studies into current-day discussions of race and racism, ethnic American literatures, and transnational and world literatures. Our field's difficulty in accommodating adaptations of the two most canonical Bronte novels perhaps exemplifies the inherent complexities of strategic presentism as both a problem and a solution. Additionally, Moy explains on the next page 409, how Patricia Park's adaptations in R.E. Jane present opportunities to conjoin past and present, drawing Bronte studies into current-day discussions of race and racism, ethnic American literatures, and transnational and world literatures. Our field's difficulty in accommodating adaptations of the two most canonical Bronte novels perhaps exemplifies the inherent complexities of strategic presentism as both a problem and a solution. This quote from Moy demonstrates how a novel like R.E. Jane that refashions Victorian literature is capable of strategically utilizing the frameworks of Western literature to elevate the visibility of other marginalized fields of literature that offer complex and progressive notions of modernity that are valuable. Integrating Victorian literature and Asian American literature alters the temporality of a story like Jane Eyre. I believe that this is where the controversy lies, as Western culture is so deeply attached to tradition. Reimagining Victorian literature in more complex, racialized ways would alter its Western sacredness, which shows how R.E. Jane provocatively confronts these transnational tensions by R.E. recreating Jane Eyre. This Victorianist struggle to engage and converse with neighboring fields that Moy describes exhibits a pattern of exclusion that Elaine Kim describes in her article titled Defining Asian American Realities Through Literature. On page 93, she states that, quote, though truly universal, Asian American literature exists outside the canon of American literature and is considered narrow and specialized, work penned by aliens to whom the English language and the culture it represents can never really belong. Thus, despite the place we are supposed to occupy as an assimilated model minority, it's hard to think of an Asian American writer who is not immediately identified as such, attesting to the continuing marginality of our literature. This relates to Moy because it shows how in the arguments against R.E. Jane stating and complaining that it wasn't Victorian enough, it immediately places the value on the Victorian literature rather than the Asian American portion of the text. And that in and of itself sets up sort of how, or it is representative of how the West values literature, and it reflects how many of the hegemonies that exist within Western culture. Elaine Kim, on page 88, also explains, quote, tied to the issues of gender, social stratification, racial oppression, and the need to restore the foundations of our history and culture, the most recurrent theme in our writing is what I call claiming America for Asian Americans. That does not mean disappearing like raindrops in the ocean of white America, fighting to become normal, losing ourselves in the process. It means inventing a new identity, defining ourselves according to the truth instead of a racial fantasy, so that we can be reconciled with one another in order to celebrate our marginality. It is this seeming paradox, the Asian American claim on America, that is the oppositional quality of our discourse. In a certain sense, R.E. Jain serves as oppositional Asian American discourse in its text because it refashions Victorian literature. Reorienting the focus of a Victorian story to a story of an Asian American calls to the attention of the Western audience the complexities of Asian American experiences. To understand this, we can look at a couple examples within the characters to see how the changes from the Victorian version of Jane Eyre to R.E. Jain have called to illuminate these different experiences. The first and most obvious example is in the protagonist, Jane. Jane Eyre is reimagined to be racialized. She is a Korean American woman that was adopted. Chapter 3 tells us of her background. She had a Korean mother with an American GI father, and her mother had died. This relates to many of the other stories we've read in transnational Asian American literature genre, because it relates to Madame M. Saigon and Madame Butterfly with this plot of abandoning military fathers and Asian mothers. The second character which we see changed is Rochester, who is Ed in the book, the wealthy white man that employs Jane and ends up having an affair with her. He embodies toxic American masculinity in various ways throughout the book. A third character we can look at is Bertha, who is Beth in R.E. Jain. Beth is Ed's wife that does most of her work in the attic, reflecting the Victorian tale. Beth, however, is a very particular mother and is very engaged in the life of Jane. This is also different from Bronte because Jane knows of her from the very beginning. We recognize these characters and relationships because of how they mirror Jane Eyre, but what is important about the novel is that it is reimagined in an Asian American way. As a result, R.E. Jain considers the various hegemonies that exist within America and American society that impact the Asian American experience. With these characters, we can see how the changes in their stories from Jane Eyre to R.E. Jain offer new perspectives about biraciality, the patriarchy, class struggles, and other transnational cultural tensions. Thank you guys so much for listening. That's all from me for today. My name is Natalie Simpson once again. I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.